my vision is for all farmers and anyone who stewards the land to have a 1,000-year vision for their land. Once you have that on paper, you create a roadmap. What is needed to get there? Capital, people, planning permission, licenses, machinery, or you need maybe the money aspect then also needs a strategy of how do you do that?
Hello and welcome to the Regenerative Design Podcast. I'm your host, Mathieu Mehuis, and in this show, I interview the leading authorities in the world of regenerative practices, people who do good and do well. Are you a person that cares about your environment and our planet? Are you a person that wants to leave the planet to our children to be something that we can be truly proud of? Something to enjoy for many generations to come? But are you also a person that believes we can do all of this and do good in business? Well, I have really good news for you. You're here listening to the podcast that is all about making our planet a better place and making your business more successful. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Regenerative Design Podcast with your host, Mathieu. And today we have a really special guest. We're honored to welcome Michel Heilmann. He's a global pioneer in regenerative design, finance, and sustainability. Michel is the founder of Holistic, former managing partner of Nordic Circular Hotspot, co-founder of the Global Compact Network in Finland and Greece, and he was part of the founder circle of the B Corp community in Europe. He launched Eco Network in 1993, one of the first B2B sustainability portals, and later served as president of Euro Charity, growing it into a leading social entrepreneurship model in Europe. He's also the author of 7 books in English and Greek. Michel's work spanned continents from Africa to Europe, shaping how we actually think about circular economies, leadership, and regenerative systems. And right now, he's on a quest to support farmers in creating their own 1,000-year vision, which is a bold roadmap that empowers them to thrive while regenerating the land. So, Michel, that's a mouthful of information. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Well, I wanted to use the same word mouthful the second that you said the word mouthful. So we are completely in synchronization and following the signs. And I'm doing very well. Greetings from a beautiful farm, organic, not-for-profit farm called the Community Farm here in the Chew Valley, overlooking the Chew Valley Lake in southwest England.
That's incredible. Yeah, we'll talk more about your incredible journey as you are on the road with your own family, which is a beautiful thing. You're taking your son and your wife to amazing places to visit farms and to. I'm thinking that there's a big aspect to teach your son about what's happening in the world and to learn from him as well. But I'm just super curious, like you've had so many accomplishments, like where did all of this start? How did you get into this?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I think it was started when I was born.
Nice.
I always say to people, if they ask me, like, where were you born and et cetera, I said, well, I like to start like where I was conceived.
That's a better question. That's a good.
I was conceived in Calabria in southern Italy. And my parents were very adventurous and entrepreneurial and very traveling the world. My father was doing research in Suriname, which back then was in the forest, in the Amazon forest with the Indians, with the native people of the land. They went to Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, Calabria, and they were in their 20s, right? Doing research and enjoying.
And this is back in the what years?
We're talking about the 1960s.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. And so, it was back then that my parents, they couldn't travel outside of the country if they were not married. So they first had to marry before they could even leave the country.
That's crazy.
Those were the times, right? So yes, then when I was born in Utrecht, and eventually I came There's someone at the door, but I'll try
That's
to
okay.
ignore it.
If you want
Someone
to go,
knocking
you.
at the camper van. It happens very often.
That's so
Actually,
cool.
yes. And was born in Utrecht. And after 2 years, my father, mother, and my sister and myself, we went to Burundi in Central Africa, and that is a place that back then was a massive genocide happening with hundreds of thousands of people that were who got killed. It was very turbulent times in Africa.
Mm.
So yeah, I would say if you ask the question, when did it start? I think that Africa shaped me in a way that I felt so much. I thought that Africa, that this was the normal thing, what was happening around me in the 1970s, right? You had wars, you had hyperinflation, you had like massive difference between uh, extreme wealth and extreme poverty, and actually there was so much abundance as well. Um, the money was worth almost nothing, but at the same time, people had this big smile on their face, like that, right? And I saw my friends; they were for my age were creating their own little toys from wires, their own little jeeps with the Coca-Cola lids and with a little rubber waist. They were creating their own little, and they were so proud of it. You know, you could see the smile, and were not wearing any any shoes and anything. So it was back then. I was fascinated by nature and by the people and by growing my own vegetables in our garden, which had a big wall around it with glass and barbed wire. And we had a guy who was with a gun who was guarding our house. We had people in our garden who were working for us in the kitchen. So it was a surreal situation whereby I couldn't even go outside. It was
That's
not
crazy.
allowed to go outside on my own without anyone protecting me, right?
Wow.
In We were living in a UN United Nations compound in Burundi, and later
Hmm.
on, my father worked for the Ministry of Agriculture of Zambia, and
Wow.
next door was the Rhodesian Bush War. So what happened is that all of this has made me into the man who I am today. The formative years, which is your first 7 years of your
Mm.
life, forms the rest of your life.
Mm.
So if you had like a turbulent youth and you have seen all of this social inequality, economic turmoil, wars, this and that. On the other side, you've seen kids being very inventive and nature shaping you and being close to nature and being also very close to people who had a lot of influence. I thought, hey, that's kind of strange. You know, if you have this influence, maybe you can do something with this influence, these
Mm.
influential connections. You know, remember I met with my father took me to Mpongwe, where we met a very high delegation of government ministers and the president of Zambia, Kenneth Kaunda, the founding father of the country, with his helicopter and everything. And yeah, it was kind of impressive as a child, you know, that these people were actually calling the shots, you know. And if you needed anything, you just had to have those connections in order to make it happen.
Huh.
Well, a lot of people didn't have those connections and they couldn't make it happen, right? So you have this strange situation whereby if you have money and you have power and you have this and you have that, you can make things done. You can make things work. But if you if you are, let's say, a peasant farmer, or you are, you know, working the land and you have zero power, right? Uh, but you're doing something very good for humanity. You're feeding us, right? You don't have that influence, or you don't even have a time to do these things. So as
Hmm.
a little kid, I was all observing this. I was thinking, hey,
That's
this is
interesting.
the world is so strange. How how did we organize things like that? That's like,
Yeah.
this is ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
I think that when I grow up, I want to change that. I want to do
Interesting.
something
That's so
about it. I
cool.
want to make impact, right? Back then, it wasn't even called impact. It was just called ecology, right? From the Greek word ekologia, right? Ecos had everything that's eco, economia, and ecologia, ecosystems, eco this, eco that, right? Is the ecos, which is the house, the
The house.
household, right? So it is the household that we live is our house, right? It's this camper van, let's say, or it's the house we live, but it's also the house that we live on planet Earth.
Mm.
That we live in one house. We live on this in the same house all together on this planet. We tend to forget that sometimes.
Hmm.
That it's not that if we let's go to the next planet because I'm done with this house. We're all sharing this house, and we have to make something which will last for a long time. It's not something that we're gonna let's say, destroy this planet and then leave it destroyed for the next generation. We are born in this land, and we hope, at least I hope, to bring it in a better shape when I leave it. So actually, we're like stewards of the land. Instead of owning the land, we merely steward it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Patek Philippe watch. Remember that ad in the past?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that? It's like you don't actually
Not.
own a Patek Philippe,
Yeah.
right? You care for it, and you pass it on to your son or to
Next.
your daughter, to new generation. You just care for it and give it to the next generation,
Yeah, that's a
right?
beautiful thing.
It's like you don't own the watch actually. You can wear it and then pass it on.
Pass it on.
The
You're
same is
protecting
with
it
the
for the
land.
next.
Yeah, we don't own the land. We don't own Mother Earth, right? We are part of Mother Earth. We are part of nature, and therefore we should do something with nature rather than against it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we should do something which will make sure that when we leave this earth, that we give that earth in such a way that it's richer, it's more biodiverse, it's more beautiful, it's more harmonious, it's more peaceful, etc.
Mm.
But you might think, well, that's utopia, right? An utopia in Greek, right? But yeah, if we all do this as our aim in life, I think every generation will live in an even better world.
This podcast is brought to you by the Garden of Your Dreams Masterclass. Are you struggling with finding the right tools and tricks for your garden? Are you lacking the confidence to be a self-sufficient gardener? Do you sometimes get overwhelmed by the lack of knowledge and time you have to actually do gardening? Then the Garden of Your Dreams Masterclass is for you. I love that, and I just thought the analogy with the watch is beautiful, but it's even better because a watch, it will stay the same, but when we care for the planet, we can create something more beautiful. We can make that watch even nicer and then pass it on when we care for the planet and do that. So I really love the fact that you grew up in that environment where you saw a lot of power, let's say, and how power plays are being used to shape the world. And then at the same time, you see that the farmers, the people that are the real people that are actually the most influential on our planet are the farmers, because they are influencing our environment. And you said, like, why is that mismatching? Was that what drove you to do the work you're doing today?
Well, it's a process. I was, as a child, I was member of the Jongololo Club of Zambia, which is a sort of a nature club. I think it's important for children at a very early age to be playing in nature
Is
and
that like the
to
scouts or similar to
not really.
scouts or?
It's like a sort of a club whereby you have these little creepy crawlies, and you do everything. You start inspecting nature. You go in
Oh,
nature.
yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
start to discover the names of things, right? And back then there was no internet. We're talking about the second half of the 1970s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have a situation whereby fellow the kids, either from school or from the neighborhood, they also start to get enthusiastic about nature. Yeah.
Hmm.
And even though maybe your parents are very busy doing other things, maybe they're working, or maybe they're cooking, or maybe they're shopping, right? Uh, Maybe once every weekend we do a little forest walk or something, right? But this was something, was a club that was, it was a daily habit of doing something with nature, right? At school, but also at we were doing homeschooling, so we didn't have that many kids. Uh, but I think it's so important that you start very young to be sensitized and be conscious about the world, right? And about nature, and about our relationship with nature,
Hmm.
right? And have start to create a world view of the world, and also be close to things that every day I learn new things. Even today, we just came back from Jersey, right? I learned everything about the Jersey cows, for example. I found that so fascinating, right? How they, how the history of that cow is, and uh, what amazing stuff they do for the grass, and for the milk, the this, that. It's like, I just thought a Jersey cow is a Jersey cow, right?
Yeah.
But if you actually go and see the Jersey cow on Jersey, right? There's no other cow on Jersey than a Jersey cow, right? Because they want to keep the breed as pure
Protect.
as possible.
Wow.
But apparently, there are more Jersey cows outside of Jersey than inside of Jersey, which
Yeah.
also shows you we are in a globalized world, whereby you don't have just a local situation, but you have a global situation whereby you can get a lot of how should I say it, a lot of input, and each place you go to, you learn new things,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That fascinates me ever since I was a child.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's very fascinating. And then let's go still a little bit more in history. Like you grew up in Africa, you got all this inspiration there, and then what was like the driving force to go and actually do something with that in the world? Because a lot of people, they think like, oh yeah, of course we need a better planet, of course we need to
Yeah,
do ecology, but hey, I have my job, I'm an accountant or I'm doing other stuff. It's
yeah.
kind of, I don't have time to think about that. Like, what was the driving force for you to make a career in that space?
I never see it as a career, actually. I think it's an intrinsic motivation. You know, uh, there were a lot of people in the early 1990s that were talking about sustainable development, as it was called back then.
Hmm.
I don't know if you can remember the Earth Summit of 1992.
Hmm.
A lot of
I was
people
1 year
were,
old, so that was hard.
yeah, in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil,
Yeah.
right? And it was a situation whereby I think that was a wake up call for the world. Also before that, actually, but more and more countries and businesses and started. I remember there was this company called EcoVer
Hmm.
from Belgium.
Yeah, I know
With
the one the founder's son. I know him. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
is
He's
he
it's
is he called
Pauli.
Pauli?
Yeah, yeah, Pauli.
Pauli, right? Remember Günter
Günther.
Pauli
Yes, yes,
in
yes.
the 90s?
I read his book. It's amazing.
Exactly. He's a visionary on blue economy, right?
Exactly.
But back then he was involved in, as a director of that EcoVer factory. That was massively innovative. It was a sort of a
Yeah,
green factory in your country, yeah.
yeah.
And I I made a newspaper called Eco Network. Every 2 months, published a newspaper with all the articles and things that were happening around the world, with
Amazing.
environment and sustainable businesses, and I just got excited about these things,
Hmm.
right? And I even today, have contact with those pioneers of that period, right? I remember there was one of the first impact investment companies in 1995 called Pim Wimick, Put your money where your mouth is community, right? You
I
know,
love that.
the most absurd
Yeah.
names were starting to pop up, right?
That's so cool.
And it was like, wow, John Elkington created the People Planet Profit, yeah, and the triple bottom line, um, and created the first environmental and corporate social responsibility report in 1997. Um, people like Paul Hawken. I read his book on the ecology of commerce. I think the 1990s were one of the most exciting years for the pioneers of the movement of creating something better for the world, right?
Hmm.
Not just do business and make profit and make money and finito. No, make money, do business, but also do good for the world and
Yeah.
do good for the people, do good for the planet, right? And do good for the profit. That was a
Yes.
new thing. It was almost unheard of that these things were important, right? But I was, let's say, part of that new generation of
Hmm.
of creating businesses or actually linking also businesses. That was my task in the 90s, was linking these businesses so that they could empower each other globally.
That's
We
amazing.
had representatives as far as New Zealand, Argentina, Sweden, Germany, the Netherlands, United Kingdom, all over the place, right? That were distributing these newspapers, and we had like a website, and the ball started rolling back then.
Yeah, that's so cool that you were part of that early pioneers group of people that said like, "Hey, we have to be careful with our planet." Like the evidence is there, probably since the '60s, but not much had happened. And maybe some political things people try to do some political changes. It's like it doesn't really work. Like I'm an opponent. I'm a believer that it's not the government's job to take care of our planet. It's the entrepreneurs, you and me, and people. I mean, at a certain degree, we should set the
I
rules of the game. That's what the government has to do.
I think that the government can help big time when it comes to the legal framework
Hmm.
and making it and incentivize.
Yeah.
Um, for example, if we talk about farming, to incentivize farmers to do good
Hmm.
for their farm, for nature, for the people, for the planet, for the health of the animals, the soil, the people. I think the government has a very big role to play on that.
Hmm.
Where the government shouldn't be playing a role is to make farming so bureaucratic
Hmm.
and so, how shall I say it, that you become almost a bureaucrat rather than farmer,
Yes.
whereby you start to have rules on this, that, and everything else, that you start to have over regulation, right, and
Exactly.
over bureaucracy, and like that you have to spend hours, days, weeks just to fill in forms to get a subsidy on something.
Yes.
That's a nightmare. So I think that uh, there should be a middle way.
Yeah, I agree.
Rather,
I, I see that with my brother and my father are farmers, and unfortunately, they spend way too much time behind the desk rather than being out on the farm doing the actual work.
yeah,
So I can see that
your
that's
country
completely
is
true.
is a is a is a is a situation whereby you don't even know who to knock the door with, right? It's like
Yes, it's crazy.
so
And
many
every 2 months,
governments.
there's
You don't have one government, you have all
no.
sorts of captains on the ship, right?
We have 11 governments. Can you imagine that
Exactly.
for
Now,
such a
how?
small country? And then you have to figure
Yeah,
everything out. And every 2 months, there's a new law. And so farmers have to study the law as well. Because if they don't do it, they get punished or they don't get the subsidies.
yeah,
That's crazy. Yeah.
yeah. But I am a very big believer that you can do things also without subsidy as such,
Oh, yeah,
right?
I agree.
A lot of things can come from the private sector, can
Hmm.
come from having a healthy business, but that would need a few things to get there,
Mm.
because in these days with so many things happening, right? Like, for example, a debt is a big problem for farmers and in general. That is a big burden on the cash flow and on the,
Hmm.
but also things like succession, right?
Yep.
If you have people who want to, yeah, carry. Let's say that you want to carry on your business for many generations. I was last week. I spent uh, uh, actually it was not even last week. It was 3 days ago.
Hmm.
I spent a very long day together with a farmer from Jersey. We just came back from Jersey, by the way. We spent there 5 days. Who his family? He's the 16th generation.
Wow.
Right, his family is from the 1500
Wow. That's amazing.
on the island. Right, he's a potato farmer, but he also has a recycling business for pallets. So all the pallets that are coming to the island, he recycles them, or he makes new products out of it. So instead of shipping those back to the mainland, right? There's no really recycling factory to do that. He made this micro factory whereby he chips them, or he makes firewood from them, or he makes all sorts of products from them, which
Wow.
are again useful to use. And even the good pallets, the really almost mint pallets that are not so much damage, he resells them back to, for example, a major dairy a company on the island, and then to reuse it. So it's reuse it, recycle it, upcycle it, downcycle it, whatever. But you do something with those pallets. And this is a Jersey Royal potato producer, right?
Yeah.
Who just got this innovative idea to make money outside of his farming business and do something good for the world, the planet, the island. And instead of him saying, "Hey, give me a subsidy because I'm doing good," he's making a good living, but he is saving a lot of money, a lot, for the government every year.
Hmm. Yeah.
So why shouldn't, I would say, such businesses should be incentivized,
Yes.
right? If you uh, earn, if you save a lot of money for society and do something good for the environment and for the island in this case, right? Why not say, "Hey, we reward you for that"?
I
Nothing
agree.
wrong with that.
I have this big vision that I did some studying on insurance companies and how much more expensive insurances are becoming and how less profitable insurances are becoming for insurance companies. And I thinking this is like billions of dollars and euros that are being spent on because of climate change that is damaging houses, floods everywhere. That if the insurance companies would give money to the farmers to become more regenerative, then that would actually reverse climate change, and that would reduce the amount of damage that's being done globally. Like if we could use the resources that we have to have a positive impact on a global scale, it becomes like, yeah, a no-brainer to invest in that. Yeah.
To invest in what? Sorry.
So to invest in regenerative farming.
Oh, that's what you mean. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Understand. Look, I find it. Look, one of the big problems of farming at the moment is the rising cost of the land and the property.
Hmm.
Um, you know, a farmhouse that would cost maybe 1 million or 2 million, 10 years later is 2 million, 4 million. Is double, and therefore the cost of insuring that house and that estate, right, is also going up,
Hmm.
right? So insurance can become a problem in a way that certain things cannot be insured anymore
Yep.
because of the disasters that are happening, or that the farmer is unable to pay for that insurance anymore. This is
Yes.
also something quite thing, but I wouldn't focus too much on that aspect for now, because at least in our conversation, I think it's very important to create, first of all, a 1,000-year vision for your farm. So my vision is like, uh, for all farmers and actually anyone who stewards the land to have a 1,000-year vision for their land.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Because once you have a very long-term perspective on your, let's say, on your, or what the next 40 generations want to do, right, and can do, because of course you're not going to be around in 1,000 years, right? But you can set a certain dot on the horizon. Say, hey, this is where we want to be going, right? We spent almost 2 months in Ireland, and we've seen a lot of so beautiful farms, estates, etc. We came across one farmer who wanted to make a regenerative farm school, right,
Wow.
on his estate, so that the people who can come from Ireland or even all around the world to his school can then practice at the farm that he runs, right, which is a regenerative farm, organic. It has polytunnels. It has 400 chickens making organic eggs. He's got a box scheme. He sells to local bakeries. It's like a thriving community around him.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he doesn't have the money to make that farm school a reality. But it is part of his vision. So we sat down, said, hey, what happens if we all sat down, right? The whole family and anyone who is on the farm, and say, hey, what do we envision for this farm? Where do we want to go to? Even if we know that certain obstacles will need to be overcome.
Mm-hmm.
Let's forget about the obstacles. Let's forget about the money issues or this, the other, all the other issues, legislation, etc. Let's just set that as a vision, and we put it on paper. Mm-hmm. So we do a session together. It can be with a fire, maybe with food and with drink, and nice with lots of post-its and newspaper articles that you can cut out, and photographs, or and have a creative big piece of paper. We did that in Northern Ireland with in a building that was almost falling down with no roof on it. At nighttime with a nice fire, and they had a vision for that building, a part of the bigger vision. So what happens then is that once you have that on paper, you create a roadmap. So you say, okay, here we are today, and this is where we want to be going in 1,000 years. So how do we get there, right? You make a roadmap. Mm-hmm. And that roadmap, then you see, okay, what is needed to get there? Then you say, okay, part of it is maybe that you need capital, or you need people, or you need planning permission, or you need whatever, right? Or you need certain licenses, or you need maybe certain machinery, or you need maybe extra land, or a lot of things can be needed to get that picture right. Yeah. In this case, with is a top 50 farmer, actually, in one of the top 50 farmers, regenerative farmers in Europe, the only one in Ireland. We visited him. He said, my dream is to make a farm school whereby everyone can work the land and really know how to farm regeneratively and organically and naturally properly. So, wow, that's an amazing vision, right? But how do you do that? He would need an X amount of money. He even had the designs from a Hong Kong school, and he had let's say it took him 5 years to get the planning permission, which he got.
Wow.
He even put the first stone in the ground to show people this is not just a vision. This is real. I want to do this, right? But this was lacking. A good business plan was lacking. A good team was lacking. The various elements that I then help the farmer or the land steward to get that right. And then often it is that the money aspect then also needs a strategy of how do you do that? How do you create not only a thriving farm, but also a thriving farm school, and all of these things, right? I don't know if that resonates with you, or if I need
Oh,
to further dive into how that would then work.
no, yeah, that's super valuable, and I can clearly see what how that plays out and how it's yeah a really good thing to do to not just think in a harvest or 2 harvests or 5 years, to set the bar like far, because then it's way easier to make decisions today. And I love what you said about that it's I think for farmers, maybe people in general, it's like we have big visions, but then we have to put it in reality, and making a business plan, financial, finding capital, all those aspects are really instrumental. And oftentimes people don't have the financial education to do that. So how did you learn all of that, and why did you decide to use that for farmers?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I have been an entrepreneur myself, so I was very much involved in setting up businesses and financing businesses. Um, I have helped many other ventures, sustainable companies, regenerative, etc., to raise capital. I helped raise capital for a circular economy fund in the United States, a major disruptive solar company in the Netherlands. It's been a long journey of more than 30 years of tried and tested things, right? Starting a business from scratch and then scaling it into a international enterprise, and then moving on to the next venture. That has
I have a
been
question
a big
around that.
journey on
What?
that.
Oh yeah, thank you. I just want to jump in there because that's super valuable that you went through that. But for you, what was the hardest part of being in business, and what were like some of the biggest obstacles that you had to overcome personally in that journey?
Well, I love your deep questions, and the time frame we have is like very short, probably to tell you all of these things, right?
Yeah,
But
but maybe one that stands out the most in your career.
well, there have been times whereby I have been raising capital for sustainable ventures, for example, and helped through, for example, crowdfunding, private
Hmm.
equity, or venture capital, or people putting money into things, and that the management team or the leadership didn't have the ethics.
Mm.
So it was sustainable, the product and the vision and everything was amazing, right? But then the people who were involved in the company, I found them, you know, as if they were like almost too much focusing on the green and the sustainable and the this and that, and not so much focusing on actually making money, or
Mm.
the business model, or how to have a good team around you,
Yes,
and
yes,
and
yes.
and so it's a very good balance that you need between your ethical beliefs and your purpose that you have, etc.,
Mm.
with that with a world that is like big and quite brutal and vicious,
Yeah,
that if you don't make money, you're done, you're
you're
out,
done.
right?
Yeah.
And therefore, if you have a great sustainable product or regenerative product, right? For example, if a farmer has, for example, one client, which is then a factory or a supermarket, right, or the milk factory or whatever, yeah, and that company goes out of business, you're so
Mm.
dependent
Done.
on that one company.
Mm.
Or and then to change that model into becoming a community focused company, whereby you sell directly to consumer, or you make it into a community owned company, or you become diversify your business, right? That can sometimes be scary,
Yeah.
because you're used to a certain model that probably your dad did, or that the system tells you this is the model, guys, right? The model is make money and sell your products, make profit, go home, right? But if you are in farming, you do this because you have a passionate you're passionate about it, right?
Mm.
So most of the entrepreneurs I meet, right, are passionate about their work and about food and healthy food and regeneration and sustainability and all the beautiful things, right? But then often they need like a mentor or people around them who can then guide them into things like, if you're a farmer, for example, you're most of the time not really a marketeer or someone who knows other skills. So you need to complement these skills that you don't have, right?
Hmm.
And surround yourself with people or make a team that can really bring that into a success, right? And not think, okay, I have a business and it's I don't know anything about that, and therefore, yeah, it might at the end of the day, if you don't make enough money, and then you have your siblings, let's say your children, they see you struggling and say, well, I'd rather go to the city and have a great successful job because
Yep.
the farming doesn't make any money, right?
No,
So what
that's why
uh,
most of kids get out of farming from farmers.
actually there is a big trend that
It's changing
is
now.
changing, that young people, millennials, Gen Z, etc., they like to make impact. They
Hmm.
love farming in a way because they start to more and more become into this. Why? Because they're excited about making nutritious food, protecting nature, biodiversity, um, animal welfare, wildlife. All of these things is coming together if
Hmm.
you start making a farm of the 21st century, which is like goes beyond just making money. It has so many other elements that are very exciting to do,
Mm.
and that's why I'm getting myself very excited if I see young people say, "Wow, you have a guy called like Jeremy Clarkson. I don't know if you
Yeah.
know him, right? He
Yeah.
brings a lot of young people into farming, right? You
Yep.
need like role models. You need success stories. You need people who say, "Wow, I go to this farm and it's so exciting. I'd like to become a farmer.
Hmm.
I like this. I want to be part of this because
Yep.
it makes me here in my heart, not here, but here.
Mm.
It makes me tick. I finally
Yeah.
feel I have a purpose in life
Hmm.
rather than going to work for a company which is very multinational or in a financial world or this and that all they want is shareholder value and the rest can go out of the window. And it doesn't make me tick here. Okay, it pays my salary, but I don't have a purpose in life.
No, that's when people burn out and then they question why. But I really love what you said
Right?
about
People
your
should
own
burn in, not burn
burn
out.
in.
It should be
It should
burning,
burn
right?
inside. Yeah.
The flame should be burning, right? And if the
Yes.
flame's not burning, what happens? You get a burn out.
I love that. That's very well put. And I love what you said because this is a really valuable lesson for our listeners and in general people is like I feel like we have a clash of two worlds a little bit in our world today. Like you have the people that are purely driven by profit, and there's a space for that, and it works. It's what most of the economy has been doing. And then there's a new world where people want to do good for the environment, ecology. They're passionate about it, things. They're purpose driven, but oftentimes we think like, oh, it's one or the other. We have to choose between profit or we have to do really good for the environment. And with the work that you've done, because it's instrumental to be really sustainable in the terms of, okay, we can do this not just 1 year with funds, we can keep doing this and we can keep growing it, is that we bring those two worlds together, that we have profit part of being impactful, because one doesn't go without the other. If we only focus on profit, then we're going to destroy the planet that we are on. If we only focus on doing something ecological, good for the environment, then it's not going to last, because we're in the system we are in today. It's an economic
Yeah. You know,
capitalistic model. So bringing that together is very valuable, I think.
I'll tell you a story that happened 10 years ago. Actually, um, uh, exactly 10 years ago today.
Oh, wow.
Actually, it was the 4th of September, to be honest. And so it's, let's say, 10, 10 years ago, more or less, and a week, let's say, there was a shop that opened in Utrecht, where I was born. It was the one of the first packaging-free supermarkets in the
Oh,
country. So you go there with a little pot, and you give it, and you can, you have these dispensers, and you
yes.
could get honey, and you could get nuts, and you can get your even peanut butter. You could put your own peanut
Push it.
butter into your little jar, right?
Very important for the Dutch.
Very important, right? And you had wine, and you had liqueur, you had all sorts of things, bread, etc. It was a small shop. Don't think that this is a big supermarket, but it was in a central location. The next supermarket was a conventional supermarket, and they had also a small organic store in it, right? So the location was excellent, top, right? Location, location, location. The idea was phenomenal. The crowdfunding was a big success. I was the one who helped the entrepreneur make that into a success, right? To guide him, because he had no idea how the crowdfunding worked, right? It was the second most successful crowdfunding campaign that year in the country. Yeah, voted by some magazine. It had all the elements of success, right? It was a team. Young people were in the store. There was like thousands and thousands of people wanted to go to that store to shop there. The media was there. The national TV, radio, everyone was there at the opening on the 4th of September. Yeah. For a shop, we're talking tiny. Yeah. The media value was in the millions, right?
Wow.
With zero budget on marketing. Yeah. In the millions. Yeah. And yet the guy who was standing there in that shop, he wanted it, but it wasn't his thing. He was a wholesale guy, right? He had never done retail in his life, right? So he did something that was out of his sort of normal comfort zone, so to speak, right? And it started to become a situation whereby people were driving around from all around the country to that store just to make that little selfie on the internet, right? Say, on Instagram, say, hey, I was at the first or second packaging free. There was one in Groningen as well, store, and look at me, and little jars with peanut butter and nuts and little bits and bobs, right? And then put that on Instagram and Facebook, and they would go back to their town, and they say, oh my God, it's very far away, this store. I just did it once. I never come back again. And it was also difficult to park there. It was a small shop. It didn't have the whole range of things, convenience. People want convenience. They don't want just a few things. They want to have everything in one supermarket, right? Which that couldn't do it because of the size of the store was not big enough, right? And slowly, that store within not so long later, right? It closed down. It shut down. It went bankrupt, right? So you say to myself, you have the investors, you have the public, you have the need, you have the idea, you have the media, you have this, you have that, you have everything that you can dream of, right? It's all there. And yet the store was making more expenses than it was making income. And in that case, you're going down because, the people, he couldn't hire the people anymore. He couldn't pay the rent anymore. He couldn't it was a spiraling going down, and not so, it didn't take that long. I believe it was just over a year that he survived it, right? And then he had to shut it down. Right? So it's a sustainable concept that everybody needs, and the other store in the Groningen also shut down, right? There is one in Antwerp, actually, that is a massive success, and one in your country, right?
Yeah.
You should go there one day. It's an amazing store, right?
That's great.
They survived it, but it's in a very small scale. I just give you one simple example, in a very small scale of how, even if everything is right, or almost right, that things still can go wrong, right?
Yeah,
Because it just doesn't make any business sense, or
Yeah.
the model is not right, or the prices are too high, right? Or the location is good, but it doesn't have all the products. It's not convenient. I can give you a list of 50 things that went wrong there. Yeah. But that the eye of the beholder says everything is looking like Disneyland here. There were people saying that they said we are in Disneyland.
Wow.
And I said, why do you think I'm in Disneyland? Because he said, I've been dreaming of this store. I'm sick and tired of this plastic packaging around the cucumbers and the this and the that. I want the whole country, the whole world to be packaging free. That's what the head says, right? But then the pocket says, yeah, but I also want that for the same price, or
Yes.
maybe even cheaper than the one that has the packaging, right? So it's more complicated, the sustainability thing, than just simply dualistically saying it's either the ecological side or it's the profit-making side, right? Or it's either regenerative or it's conventional farming, or it's either organic or it's non-organic. I believe that's very dualistic to look at it that way. I believe there can be a lot can be done for these two to actually be working together, and with a longer vision of a 1,000-year vision, then you make decisions today, bearing in mind the future generations, rather than looking at the very short term, like how can I make a quick buck, or how can I make a quick profit, or how can I have my shareholders feel good, or how can I have my venture capital or vulture capital company, fill the pockets very soon so they can flip the company around and after 3 years exit. That's short-term thinking.
Yeah.
And that often those kind of mentalities destroy the planet. And not the planet, also the people, right? A lot of these companies go out of business because of the financial mismanagement, or because of very rogue investors who are only thinking of the short term.
Yeah, it destroys people if you're only driven by profit. It's quite known that people that go into these high-paying jobs and they get all the money they want, but they're not satisfied with the impact they're getting, they'll turn to other things like drugs and alcohol to feel something. So it's really an unsustainable life, even if you have all the profits in the world. Obviously, it could change if you then use that money to do good. That's another discussion to have. But I feel, Peter, Michel, that in the more recent years, you've been in that world since the 90s. You've seen a lot of things come and go, and that more in your, I don't know in how many years now, but you've kind of shifted your focus to farming. Why is that? Why did you go into that realm today?
Well, it started about 2.5 years ago in the Netherlands. I started helping farmers, a movement which I called Farming Without Bank, Boeren zonder bank, right?
Nice.
In Dutch, the word boeren can mean either farming or farmers,
Yes.
right? It can be either a verb or it can be a noun, right? Which is kind of confusing.
Yeah,
So it
but
can
it
be
works both ways.
farming without bank, or it can be farmers without bank, right? If you translate
Yeah.
it. It was a concept that you create. Let's say that you have a need for X amount of money to buy out the debt that you have at the bank, the mortgage, let's say, yeah, and the bank usually takes the land as a security, right?
Yeah. Collateral. Yeah.
In order for you to pay back, and often it's the security is more land. If you look at the actual loan, it wants, in most cases, take either all the land or a bigger proportion of the land, and that needs to be paid off, right? Paid back. It needs to have interest that has to be paid back, and that's in a lot of cases. We have a very big bank in the Netherlands called the Rabobank, right? The blue bank from the city where I was born, Utrecht. Again, it seems to be quite a central place where there's a lot of happening in that city, right?
Yeah.
And has many tens of billions of euros outstanding. to the farmers in not only in the Netherlands but also globally. It's a global bank, yeah. And there are many other banks that Triodos Bank. There's in this country, in England, Lloyd's Bank. There's a lot of banks who provide loans to farmers. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, except that if you cannot pay back and it becomes a cash flow problem, then it's good to pay off those loans and then to become debt free, right? And if you're debt free, you can, with that cash flow extra you can invest in enriching biodiversity. You can plant trees. You can enrich nature. You can have more regenerative farming, or you can do things that normally you don't have the resources for, because you don't have the cash flow, because that money has to constantly every month go back to the bank with interest. Yeah. So this is a model that now several farmers is actually I've helped quite a few farmers in the Netherlands create what I call earth certificates. Right? Earth certificates is in a sense, a perpetual bond, which is a bearer bond, which doesn't have your name on it, right? And it's, let's say that you need 500,000 euros, right? Or in this country, pounds. You cut that amount into 500 pieces, and you create a certificate of 1,000 euros or pounds or Swiss francs or whatever currency it is that you are in. And that certificate has then a coupon of, let's say, 2%, a very low interest rate. And it is something that can last for forever, that bond. It's not something that you necessarily have to pay back, but you have to provide the 2%. There is another model whereby it's not perpetual, where you pay back your let's say, the ones who finance you, but usually they are around in your community. So either in your village, your customers, your partners, the people who buy things from you at the market, maybe, right? For example, there is a in Drenthe is a province in the northeast. There was a farmer. He was farming with horses. Can you imagine that? Farming with horses and no tractor. He had one tractor, but he was doing a lot with horses. And his wife had sheep, and they went to the market every Saturday, and they are organic, and they do everything regeneratively. They have a farm shop, and they have everything. And yet they needed capital to grow the business. And so they did this concept called farming without bank. Right. So instead of knocking on the door, knock, knock, bank, give me the money, they found that money within their ecosystem. So from their market customers or from their box scheme customers, they didn't have a box scheme customer. It was like a whereby he was doing the farming, and then you could come with your scissors or with your your tools and with your anything you needed to do the harvest yourself. So in Dutch it's called zelfoogsttuin, right? So you harvest yourself. In other words, those customers, we were one of those customers, by the way. We were paying 350 euros per person per year. So if you have 2 people, 2 adults, it's 700 euros. And that 700 euros could, if you do that times multiple, you have a sort of an income, a basic income for yourself. And those customers can also then finance you, can help finance you. Say, hey, I'd like to give you a loan. And that the interest of that loan can either be in money, but it can also be in goods. It can be in fruit, vegetables. It can be in having a nice a big table where you have a dinner once a year, or it can be we got a 10% discount on getting his products from the market every Saturday.
Yeah,
so
that gets very interesting.
There's no bank that's gonna say, hey, dude, I'm giving you a 10% discount on your next loan. Or, if you buy my insurance company, I will give you a 10% discount. No, that's not how it works,
No.
right? So you build a relationship with the farm, right?
Yeah.
So you can either do it that way, which is more small scale, right? Or you can do it a little bit more larger scale, whereby you make a trust next to your farm, and that trust can receive philanthropic capital, catalytic capital. It can receive in-kind donations. You can even have those earth certificates, for example. It can have grants, subsidies. It can have multiple things going to that foundation. And for doing the things that the farmer cannot afford, can even own land, could even transfer land into the trust, right? For example, people who have stopped farming or have no siblings, have no children, or who are stopping with farming, they don't want to sell it to someone who is going to put a villa and a swimming pool on it, or to the government, or to the highest bidder, but wants to keep it local, keep it regenerative or organic, or with the principles that he backs. And that foundation, that trust can then guarantee that. So what you're creating then is you have your commercial business, you have a non-profit entity that are next to each other, or even the for-profit entity being under the trust, under the non-profit foundation. You create a steward ownership model. And that trust can then also have other companies under it or other land holdings. So you create an ecosystem, right? Ecosystema in Greek, right? Ecos and system. You create the system of your house on a local and regional scale, right? You create a sort of a regenerative region or a bioregion, whereby that region can thrive and stays local, rather than selling those carrots or whatever and is exporting that to the other side of the planet. You're creating your own ecosystem, financial ecosystem for the food and good nutritious food, but also the ecosystem whereby you have a relationship with the land and the farmer. How many people do you know in your circle of friends who have a relationship with a farmer?
Very little.
But they probably have a relationship with their health club, or their gym, maybe their school friends, maybe with the library, or maybe with a sports club, and all of those relationships exist. But how cool would it be to make a relationship with a farmer that lives, close to you, and that you support also financially, or maybe that you buy his or her products, or that you go to some feast, or that you start to become part of the ecosystem of the community that farmer has.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea. And even if you could change, if you don't have the money to go and help a farmer, I have a friend in Canada. He's an accountant, so he's mostly behind his desk, and he was tired of it. So now every week he spends 3 to 4 hours on an organic farm and works with his hand. In exchange, he receives some produce, and it really helps the farmer because the labor is extremely expensive. So I think that's another model that could be discovered. But the one you're saying is brilliant, because let's say you give a farmer €1,000, and for that €1,000 you get a variety of benefits that you receive over a longer period, which you can afford to not have that €1,000. And by giving that €1,000 to the farmer and still benefiting from it in many years, whatever the agreement is, you're helping that farmer solve his cash flow problem, because cash flow is the biggest problem in farming. I know it from my own father. They have a ton of machines and land, and all the capital is locked in that, and they don't have the money to keep investing in newer things. So
exactly. And especially not nature and biodiversity, animal welfare, the quality of the soil, right? Do experiment. You might experiment with things and it might go wrong. You should be able to cushion that.
Yes.
Right?
Because if it
goes
no wrong with
bullet.
the bank,
if
it goes wrong with the bank, they take your land and they sell it.
Yeah, you sell this.
That's the big problem.
You sell this family silver, I call that, right?
Yeah.
And if there's one thing that you really should be careful about, is to sell your family silver because of the financial problems that you have, I think that's totally criminal. Because if you are doing something good for the benefit of humanity, yeah, maybe humanity doesn't pay the real true cost of that food that we eat, yeah. Maybe it's subsidized. In the EU, for example, it's heavily subsidized. Maybe it is something that it's cheaper to buy potatoes from, let's say, South America, rather than potatoes from, let's say, Jersey. But you can ask a question like, okay, it comes from the other side of the world, right? It needs to be flown over here. You have no idea who is that farmer who created it. It needs a lot of pollution to get over here. You don't know what the quality is, and also what environmental credentials this potato has. You have no idea what the nutritional value is, right? And while there are at the moment, for example, in the Netherlands and in many countries, that they can't get rid of the potatoes right now. And this potato is just one example. It can be other things, right? I'm telling you this one, but it can be other things too. It can be any sort of crop. Yeah. What's important, for example, we just came back from Jersey. 98% of the food in Jersey is being imported to the island.
Wow.
98%, and 2% is from the island itself, right? That creates a sort of something of a very big problem of your food sovereignty, right? If you don't have food sovereignty, that can be very, very problematic for the people, for your future, and for the future generations. I think it's very important to be self-sufficient. And let's say if there are problems out there, you have seen it in Spain, for example, not so long ago, with the natural disasters that were happening. Suddenly, a big chunk of Europe didn't have the produce coming from that region, and there were like empty shelves. And I think, how crazy are we? What's happening here? Is this globalized world that we are so dependent on this region, that region, that if that region has a problem, pop, suddenly we start to panic. Oh my God, I can't get my paprika and my onions, my this or that. My dear, you can get it from around the corner, except you are not aware of what is happening in your own area. And if you were, you wouldn't have to be so dependent on getting the food from other countries. And you also eat things in season rather than trying to demand strawberries in December, right? You know that the asparagus is not for sale in September, October, November, not even January, right? No. But the asparagus, if you get it, I love the fresh asparagus when it comes out, right? I love it, regeneratively made, etc. It's a feast, right?
Yeah.
It's a feast that lasts for an X amount of weeks, and then it's finished.
Yeah.
But that is something also that consumers and people like you and me and other people need to understand, is that we cannot demand 24/7, 365 convenience for our food, but we also have to be much more supporting the farmers, and also thinking in terms of seasons and thinking in terms of local, rather than thinking that the whole world could supply us with food whenever I want it, and have it delivered in plastic bags, and then I can buy it from the supermarket, and I go home and I pack my car full of stuff, and then thinking that everything is normal.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And it's very interesting that you're focusing on farming, because that's where I would say all the magic is happening. And then, so it makes a lot of sense that you're going there. So, but currently part of your mission to create those 1,000-year visions for farmers and helping farmers to raise capital in a healthy way, let's say, that is healthy for their business and for the next generation. What is the biggest roadblock, the biggest problem that you're facing to push this forward so that more and more people are doing it?
Look, every farm, every land steward has a different situation. it's like a suit, right? It's like a custom-made suit, right? Every person, like your body is different than my body, right? Your needs, your country has different rules than this country, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your region has maybe a different culture, problems, different situations, taxation, succession. Right? There's a big thing, in, for example, in UK now, is next year that they're going to start to create the inheritance tax will change for farmers. Right? There's a big rising on that. It's going to become a big earthquake that can have a major effect on survival of farmers. Right? So it's important to understand to actually not go to a farm and say, hey guys, you have to do this, 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 and this, and finito. No. First, you're going to walk the land, feel the land, speak with the farmers, speak with people who steward the land, and then feel, okay, this is who you are. This is who your ancestors are. This is where you come from. This is your history. These are your pain. This is your problems. This is what you have nightmares about, or this is what you're struggling with. And then start to understand that more and to have a dialogue. It can sometimes it can be days that we do this. It can be maybe a week, maybe longer, right? And then to fully grasp that, we stayed, for example, 2 months in Italy, almost 2 months we stayed in Italy. We spent more than a month on one regenerative organic farm of 35 hectares. And it was very hot. It was was a lot of mosquitoes there. And it was like crazy, right? But we stayed there with, my wife and I and our son. We're traveling around with our camper van to go to all of these. We call it Follow the Science. We have a website
Yes.
called followthescience.earth. And so we went to Italy. We went to two regenerative farms there, and we noticed that the farmer was so stuck with the survival modus that he had this big house that he was renting out for Airbnb. He was serving breakfast. He was doing weddings. He was doing this. He was doing that. He said, I have to run now because I have to make money in the summer that brings me through the winter so I can survive. So a lot of farmers are in that they need to do other activities, other businesses. They have to rent their houses out, or they need to start creating a glamping on their land, or they have to make a restaurant, right? And so they need to diversify, and yet they are doing things that they're not really have no knowledge of, or they have no experience with. They don't have the capital for, right?
Yeah.
So that needs a 1,000-year vision first. What do you want to achieve? Where do you see this going to? And then you make a plan, an action plan, right? A roadmap, plan of that you, okay, 1,000 years is great, but you also have to look at the first steps, the first years, right? And how to get out of that. It's almost a rat race, right? You're stuck in a sort of system that you cannot easily get out. And a lot of farmers, they need a job outside of the farm to survive, right? This is, in many cases, in certain countries, it's quite normal that the cost of living is so high that you need a job to, or the wife, sometimes both of them, or the whole family is working outside to make a living because the farm is not making any money, right? So it's very complex. You can't generalize the question you're asking. It
No.
needs a custom-made situation whereby each one needs to look at, hey, how do I do it? And if you make a benchmark, like a precedent, right, with SC, yeah, then in one country, then many farmers and land stewards in that country can then go there, and rather than reinventing the wheel, they can copy paste that model and then make sure that you customize it for your own situation. That would be a really cool thing to do, to set that precedent in each country on planet Earth, in
I love
order
that.
to then have the ripple effect.
That's a beautiful mission. So first, it's the goal to select. Well, anybody can join, but to select some farmers that are already open to regeneration, that are already somewhat advanced. So you mentor them to really nail it financially. And then the neighbors who are maybe still conventional, or they're just starting to think, they're going to look over the fence and be like, oh, it seems like things are going well there. Or this farmer, he's smiling. He wasn't smiling 3 months ago. Now he's finally smiling. Something must have changed. And
He's
then
a
they
bit like
ask him,
you. You're smiling all the time, right? Your friends say, "What's wrong with you?" They don't say what's right with you. They say what's wrong with you, because they're not smiling, right? So
yeah,
I like that you are, with your podcast as well. You try to spread the word and to spread the good news of how it can be done,
yes,
and that's so important, is to not only do it one-on-one, but also that you start. We're creating now a documentary. Is a documentary makers from the Netherlands who are following us, and they're making a documentary called "Follow the Signs."
yeah,
And
that's
each
so
each
cool.
episode, they're going to go to a farmer or a number of farmers to zoom into uh, uh, their problems and what's happening, and then how they transform into a 1,000-year vision, and how they do that in practice, so that other people in the world, not just farmers, but also people who want to know what farmers are struggling with, and how they can transform that into a successful future for the next 1,000 years.
Yeah,
They're following us in now in UK and in Ireland. They're going to this month they're going to make film. They're going to film here on this farm where we are now, and they're going to go to Ireland and Northern Ireland and other countries as well. This is just the beginning, right? We can even go to Africa or Asia, Latin America. Uh, we started in our backyard, so to speak, right? In the countries in the Netherlands, and then the countries around the Netherlands, and then we'll go further out to where we are called to. So we don't plan where we are going. We are
I
called
think
to go to the place. That's called the follow the signs.
that's
We
brilliant.
feel that the intuition and the signs that come to us, and based on that, we follow those. That's why it's called follow the signs.
That's so brilliant. I wanted to ask you to explain it more. I think, but you've completely explained it very well, and that's such a cool thing that you said. Okay, I have my camper, I'm mobile, and I'm just gonna start driving, meeting people. You went to the most important event in regenerative farming in the UK, where you met a lot of people, and then that opened a lot of doors. Help me out with the name again of the event. That's where people should definitely go
Yeah,
when they want to. What is
yeah.
it called again? Help me out. The biggest regenerative farming event in the UK. You were there a few weeks
Groundswell.
ago.
Actually,
Groundswell, yeah,
I think it could be globally.
in
They
the
had
world. Yeah.
10,000 visitors this year.
Wow,
And
that's
so
incredible.
it started with a small gathering of, I believe, 500. Last year it
Yeah.
was 8,000. Um, there were two royalties walking around there. It's like a whole delegation from Israel was there. Uh, I don't know if you remember that it was that period where there was this the massive attack, so to speak, right?
Hmm.
There was this friction with Iran and with the whole geopolitical instability. There were
Yeah.
no flights. There was no nothing going out of the country. It was exactly that period, just before that. And what happened is that uh, uh, that delegation couldn't go to Groundswell, right? And together with Gadi from Regenerative Israel and we kind of helped the situation to get everyone back in. So when everything was done, uh, they wanted to come to the event. So
That's
it was
amazing.
going from the one extreme of not being able to go to boom, the other extreme, like everyone could go. It was a whole delegation of people from Israel who wanted to go there, and
Yeah.
and that's how, a country, one place, a small like a farm from the Cherry family in Hitchin, right in Hertfordshire, can have such a massive ripple effect or people coming there inspire each other. And, by walking around there with my wife, Mika, and our 6-year-old son, Rafi, we thought that if we are 8 billion people, right? If that 8 or 10,000 people on that farm are representing, can have that ripple effect to inspire and influence that 8 billion to do the same thing what's happening on groundswell, then there's hope for the world. Because it's just, it was almost as if you were living on a different planet on that groundswell. You were thinking, wow, if is this happening all around the world? And if not, why not?
Why not?
What holds us back to actually, is it the money? Is it the scaling? Is it the legislation? Is it maybe it's the big forces that don't want this to happen? What is it, right? So there's this really upbeat, positive vibe. You had even ex-CEOs from major corporations, like I saw the Paul Pullman from the former CEO of Unilever walking around there, and his son Christian. There were so many people that you thought, wow, this is what I didn't see very much. People walking around were actually children and young people that actually also should be having this, also be educated and inspired by this, right? Not just the adults in the room, right, and the business people and the farmers and everything, but also that there's more involvement of young people. I think I'm going to, through this podcast, to tell the Cherry family, hey guys, also look at the younger generations that are not yet adults, to get them inspired by groundswell. Maybe do a groundswell junior or something like that as a side event next to it or something.
That's a really good idea.
Rafi was 6 years old. I don't know if he was the youngest child, but he was walking around. He loved it. It was just so cool. Phenomenal.
That's so cool. So Peter, Michel, we're going to start wrapping up the interview, but I still have an important question for you.
Tell me.
So all the people that are listening, that are like, I have this burning desire, I feel something in my heart that I want to contribute to this, being farming, regenerative design, regenerative entrepreneurship. What is your single most important piece of advice for them?
I would say stay grounded, create a 1,000-year vision for your business, your family, your farm, your estate, right? Collaborate, don't compete, right? Work together as much as possible, and find new instruments for financing your business or your farm, or don't only look at the classical ways of doing things, right? My family and our family office is part of a European agri-food co-funding alliance. We had our monthly call yesterday, and it's 25 families and foundations who banded together to provide catalytic capital to regenerative initiatives and ventures and businesses and farms for things that normally other capital providers wouldn't be interested in, or would need that first mover, right? Up to 4 million euros we invest, and then others will follow. So it's very important that you be not only the change that you want to see in the world, but also finance that change that you want to see in the world, right? And
I love that.
And inspire others to get ambassadors and people around you who are like-minded, soul-minded, and hard-minded people to make it happen. And then I think things will move.
Yeah. And I think it's a perfect moment to start wrapping up, because I hear people are knocking on your camper.
Yeah, people, I get phone calls from people. There are people knocking on the door. It's crazy. But I have been having a great time speaking with you. I'm very, I see that you have the right, your heart is at the right place.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that, Peter, Michel, and I want to thank you from that same
Thank you.
space, the depth of my heart, to have you take an hour and a half of your time to spend
Wow.
here.
Is it already
And,
an hour and a half? Okay.
Yes, it's been that long.
All right.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Have an inspiring day, and thank you for having me on the show.